I'd like to welcome you to WCPT AM's Out Chicago. Think of us as Sunday brunch with your gay best friends. Now please welcome your host, Scott Duff.
Well, here we are again. Yay! I would say happy Sunday fun day because that's usually how we start the show, but ain't nothing fun about this right now at all.
Not a lot of joy in Mudville this week.
Hey, it's Scott Duff and that's Ellen Miller. Welcome to Out Chicago.
Welcome,
that little
everybody.
burpily sound was the sound of my tummy right there. That's what it sounds like. Nothing but burpy tummy.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. There. Hi. How you doing there, Ellen?
I am putting one foot in front of the other.
That's a loaded question. Yep, I am.
One foot in front of the other, my
Heel-toeing
friends.
it, as I say.
Yeah.
I'd like to heel-toe. Just try to keep moving forward. This was a Kooky Pants week for everybody, but fortunately we've got a great show.
Yeah, we
tried to do
our thing.
Yeah, we'll do our thing.
Spread the love, spread the hope.
Spread the love, spread the hope, and when we're all ready, spread the call to action because we're gonna need that. But right now, I think everybody just needs to kind of pause and refill the well.
Yeah, take
look
care
after
of
what's going
yourselves
on.
and your sisters and your brothers and come together and do what makes you feel good.
Yep. And, I found that community is really good.
Yes,
and
it is.
Brian Johnson, CEO of Equality Illinois, is going to be joining us later this hour to kind of talk about the path forward for the LGBTQ community. And they are also, Equality Illinois is also hosting an upcoming virtual panel discussion, which I remember in 2016, having a moment with all of the LGBTQ activists and leaders and experts and allies at some church in Lakeview. I remember that. I think there's a Methodist church there or something. I can't remember exactly where, but it was in Lakeview. It's off of Broadway. And
that's where Lifeline used to be?
No.
Oh, not that.
No, further near Roscoe.
Oh.
But it was very helpful to be in community with people whose interests you all share. So that's going to be a wonderful option
yes.
to help everybody process what's going on right now. And you know what? Artists, they're going to be arting really hard
yes,
in the next couple of years. Timeline Theater and Court Theater have teamed up for Falsettos, a tribute to family in its many forms and a celebration of the beauty, complexity, and necessity of love. We're going to chat with Associate Artistic Director for Timeline Theater and Director of Falsettos, Nick Bowling, in the second hour.
I know that's one of your very favorites.
It's one of my favorites.
Very special to you.
It's very, very special. We actually had William Finn on the show years ago, and I cried through the whole thing.
That's why I remember how special it is for you.
I know. I remember that moment where I looked at you. I was like, Ellen, you have to talk. You're like, what? I'm like, I need to cry
right now.
I'm crying right now. Very excited about that production. And Nick Bowling is just a stellar human being, an incredible director. Very looking forward to that. And, everybody could use a good laugh right now. Philip Dawkins' new play, The Comedians, follows a queer relationship as they navigate fame through a series of stand-up sets. It's getting ready for a limited engagement at Raven Theater, and we're going to chat with playwright Philip Dawkins and director Colm Summers. And if you want to get something off your chest, please give us a call, 773-763-9278. That number again is 773-763-9278. Of course, you can find us on Facebook, where we are coming at you live. Just head on over to Out Chicago Radio, and while you're there, give us a click and a like and a share, and please share and click and like and everything right now, because we need to get the word out more than ever these days. But if that doesn't float your boat, you can always tune in on WCPT AM 820. And while you're at it, follow WCPT on all of the socials except Twitter. I got rid of that one. I dropped that.
I never
dropped that right away.
I was on it, but I wasn't on it.
Oh, I never, I would just, I would go, yeah.
But that seems to be the one everybody's dropping.
I wonder why.
I can't imagine.
I wonder why. There we are.
Yeah.
So, it's been one heck of a week. How have you been holding up there, Ellen?
I'm trying to keep my brain free of bad thoughts because they keep, the night of the election, I was like, I kept telling everybody at the house, guys, come on. We got the swing states haven't even come in yet. We expected these states. But then as you look deeper into it, as you looked at the looks on the faces of the commentators, the anchors, and you could just feel it. And it's 2016 all over again.
But worse.
But worse.
but worse.
Well, yeah. Because we know what we're getting into. And I, like so many, the next morning I was up very late. I listened to his speech, and I went to bed thinking, how am I going to sleep? I woke up thinking, oh, here we are again. And just kind of a lazy day on Wednesday, but then kind of on Thursday, it's kind of like, hey, I'm angry. I was sad on Wednesday. It's like the stages of grief. I was angry on Wednesday. On Thursday, Friday, I had like some kind of calm that because I had to okay, this is so bad.
I have been feeling an eerie sense of calm too. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Self-preservation, I think, and it's just. We know that thinking that way is not going to help us, because if you go there, if you think of every single thing from the Supreme Court to deporting these poor immigrants who are just trying to work hard and do it, feed their families and have a livelihood and have a better life, to the trans community that was thrown under the bus, you just wonder, where will the hate, where will the fear end? And if you keep thinking about it, like I just mentioned, it's a nowhere street mentally. It is not going to get you getting through the day. So a lot of people are, getting rid of their Twitter accounts, saying they're not watching the news. We don't have that luxury. We kind of have to watch the news. But I don't have to have it on 24/7. Nope. I haven't really had it on that much. Nope. It's been on a need-to-know basis. I'm going to continue to do that. I need to be informed, but there's no need to just immerse yourself and wallow in the in all the what's going on and all the soul searching, Scott. The soul searching. The Democrats need to soul search. She ran a great campaign.
She did in 100 days.
And she was a great candidate. And I am not going to for 1 second start ripping that apart. Yes, should Biden have done what he said, which was a 4-year term and out from the beginning?
Sure.
Yes.
But that's not what happened.
But that's not what happened. And when Elon Musk bought Twitter, I was stupid. I knew he wanted to have a platform, but I never dreamt he was basically going to buy an election. Because in my opinion, the money that he put into this election, the medium
all the billionaires
put in, they ran 30,000 anti-trans ads in markets. So not our market, but you could see them if you traveled anywhere else. 30,000 anti-trans ads. I saw a couple of them on football last Sunday. Every other ad was Trump. And I was starting to get a little nervous on Sunday because whoever controls the message, and not for those of us that are informed, but the media has been manipulated with propaganda and fear. And this is what has brought us where we are today. We don't have, more than ever, people are looking at just one news source, and that's
what they're doing, they're looking at their
phones.
phone.
Well, that's their source.
They are looking
that's their
at
source.
Yeah, I know. They are looking at their phone. They are hearing opinion. They're hearing misinformation. They are not looking at sources. People are dumb.
They're dumb. People are not educated. They want to get rid of the education department in this. We need to step it up because people did not pay attention and they were tricked. That's how I look at it. They were tricked. I've even heard people, they were tricked, because I've heard a few people they've interviewed since they voted for Trump that said, do you understand what these tariffs could do? And they're like, no, I really didn't think about that.
Because they didn't think about the tariffs.
Well, Devin's got something to say.
One of the top thing Google searches this week is, what is a tariff?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
So they didn't, I heard guys coming out of, there were these exit polls that night, predominantly white men and ethnic men. Why did you vote for him? Well, he's a good businessman. Okay, again, not paying attention.
And he's been bankrupt 6 times.
Well, again, because we're paying attention, and they were. He's got good policies. And then someone would ask him what they were, and of course they had
don't
no
know.
answer.
Yeah, there is no answer. Yep.
There is no answer. So I am just saddened by the fact that people, in my opinion, were duped. In my opinion, they were duped by fear. By the women in the boys in the girls' gym classes and the bathrooms, all of that, and the prisoners there were 2 transgender surgeries, affirming surgeries in prison, 2, which is a policy that even under Trump wasn't a woke Biden policy. But again, people They don't look deeper. And that's the sad part to me. One of the questions that someone said is, who would be better in a crisis? And they answered Trump. I'm like, do you not? We lived through the crisis of our lifetime. And your grandparents, your friends' grandparents, your parents, people died.
Yeah.
And this is, but I just got to calm down and realize it's sad, but they're going to learn the hard way because he does not care about them.
No, of course
they're not going to, their cost of living is not going to change.
No.
And the fact that they weren't aware of how much better our economy is doing. I know it's not, the price of eggs. So what?
Okay, wait. Hold on 1 second right there. Because this is where I think his messaging was spot on. Was about grocery prices.
Yes.
Was about gasoline. I work in a grocery store.
Right. They've gone down over the years, though, last couple of years, the prices, haven't they?
No. Oh, my God,
well,
no.
Aldi they have.
Well, because it's a German company.
I love their
same
price.
with Trader
Go
Joe's.
to Aldi, everybody.
Same with Trader Joe's.
Yeah,
it's
eggs are only like $1
well,
or something.
but a lot of people... Like I've noticed since I've been
you're at the front lines.
We are slammed every day, and it's not usually like that. It's because
people buy a little by little.
Because groceries right now are expensive.
Right.
That is one thing that people are trying to poo-poo that, saying like, oh, whatever. But what about morality? It's like, well, you know what? People don't have morality when you are living paycheck to paycheck. There are a lot of people out there who are living paycheck to paycheck.
Right. That's true.
And as you said, got duped. They were looking at that thing. That was what they were deciding. They don't care about I've even said the economy. Like we are the envy of the world. We were the envy of the world when it comes to economy. But when it comes down to the cost of living, just every day, rents are really high, gas is really high, groceries are really high. And that's how people went in. And I don't think it's. I mean, yes, we can be mad at them for voting for Ding Dong, but I don't think we can be mad at them for taking that part. What really got me sad as a Gen X person, I grew up with Sesame Street, Mr. Rogers, The Electric Company, Free to Be You and Me, like all of the Muppets, all of these things that was about inclusivity, about celebrating creativity, about nurturing kindness and curiosity, and you loving your fellow man. Like look at Sesame Street, what a groundbreaking thing. That was one of the most diverse casts ever. It started in the 60s, and it started, when I was a kid watching that. Mr. Rogers breaking racial barriers by having a black policeman sit and put his feet in a pool with him. The Electric Company, again, a diverse group of people that are trying to educate folks about here's how to read and here's what's basic right and wrong. Yeah. Everything that we were taught as children was about being good, is about being fair, is about being honest, is about helping your neighbors, is about helping those less fortunate than you. Right. And so many people have just thrown that out the window.
They have. That's the sad part.
And I don't understand. And I think it's a lot of this. Yeah. It's your phone. Yeah. It's about social media, about nothing exists except for clicks and likes and shares and what you feel. Like that dopamine hit.
It's selfish. People are selfish.
People have become more selfish. Yeah. And more it's not selfish. It's just like a myopic viewpoint. It's like they can only see inside what's inside them. And I know there's been floating around. They don't see. There is no such thing as the greater good anymore. There is no such thing as the greater good. That concept has gone out the window.
Not for half of America, but there is a half that does. Well, there is a half that does feel that,
but writ large, that was the thing. What happened to electing officials who are competent? Electing officials who have high moral character.
They don't, that part is just, it hurts.
It's bananas.
And we can't forget, we can talk about the middle and we can talk about the grocery prices. But really, to me, the elephant in the room is the only one that beat him was a white male. Two very, 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 very competent professional women could not beat him because this country is still misogynist, sexist, and racist.
Oh,
and
yeah.
those are the facts. These men that voted for him, whether they're ethnic men or white men, they still feel a guy is stronger to be president of the United States. This is what hurts me, cuts me to the quick, because they just took a man, regardless of his character, regardless of where he put us during COVID, regardless of what he says, regardless of his mental capacity, and picked him over a competent, smart, educated, wonderful, caring, loving, inclusive woman. And that, as a woman, hurts me. And you know what? I'm sorry to the black women in this country and the women that voted for Kamala, because we got a kick in the gut because we were still told that it's not our time yet. That's how it feels. It's not our time in America. America, you think you're so darn great. You think you're so progressive and the greatest country in the world, but you turned your back on a competent person with moral character and took instead because you were worried about grocery prices and you think a man is stronger. It hurts all of us.
Yep, it hurts all of us, and it hurts. You think you're mad? Try being a black woman.
I said, the black women, I want to walk up to everyone I see on the street and give them a hug. 92% of them voted. 92%.
Yep.
The largest voting bloc always is for the Democrats. And once again, they got kicked in the gut. A woman of color was turned away by this country, by the white people in this country, by the white males and the white females.
Yep.
And it does not feel good.
It does not feel good at all. And that is why every single one of my black woman friends, they're like, all right, I'm sitting out. I'm done.
I don't want them to feel that way because we need them.
I know, but I feel like I say this after every election when black women come in and save the day. After the election and after things are win, nothing is done to help communities of color. Nothing. It's all lip service, and nothing has ever happened. They've never gone to address like food deserts. They haven't gone to address, child care, health care, wage equity. There's nothing that's
she
happened.
had some good plans.
She did. I'm with you. No, I'm not with you. But my biggest criticism has always been we rely on black women to vote, and then once we get into office, we don't do anything for them. We don't do anything to help communities of color. It is reprehensible. And I can see how many times do you have to do that before it's like, you know what, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me 70,000 times.
I know. Who can blame them? I get it. I mean,
I know. We're okay. Listen, we got to take a break.
We got your calls. We're going to get to you.
Please stay on the line, callers. We're processing this whole thing. Right now, and we should take a break. But before we do that, we got to pay some bills right now. So this part of That Chicago is brought to you by Team Hochberg. If you're purchasing a new home or refinancing your existing home, you need to call Team Hochberg, your trusted local lender. Meet Jordan, 60. He scores 620. What? Oh, he's got a score of 620 or something. Married to Bonnie, 59, score of 510. I'm assuming that's their credit score. Combined annual income is 80 grand. Now, Bonnie is an in-home caregiver who couldn't work during COVID, which destroyed her credit and forced them to live off their credit cards. Jordan reluctantly called David after unsuccessfully trying to refinance multiple times with various lenders. David helped Jordan refinance, pay off 30 grand of credit card debt, reduce their payment $1,500 a month, and created a plan to rebuild Bonnie's credit. Now let's review. After Jordan and Bonnie were rejected by multiple lenders, David helped them to cash out, refinance, save 18 grand a year, and help Bonnie revitalize her credit. So if you are suffocating in credit card debt, if your suffocating credit card debt is keeping you up all night or stressing you out, I'm glad that's what's stressing you out. Call David now for a complimentary mortgage review, 855-563-2843, or visit 56david.com. That number again is 855-563-2843, or visit 56david.com. Lower.com, equalizing lender, NMLS 1124061. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to get your callers, so please hang on the line. You're listening to Out Chicago right here on WCPT.
Welcome back to Out Chicago on Chicago's Progressive Talk. Can I get you another Bellini?
Yes, Stephanie Miller. Give me a vat of Bellinis, please, right now. An IV drip of Bellinis.
Exactly.
But we can't do IV drips because the place that's been manufacturing IV bags in North Carolina is shut down because of the things. So we can't even do that. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on. Yeah. Any hoozles, welcome back to Out Chicago. Scott Tubb and Ellen Miller. This is going to be a crazy show. Well, we had an election, and the America decided that they would rather have a 34-time convicted felon run this country. I don't get it. Let's just be clear. This has happened because misogyny is real. Fascism is easier than freedom. Groceries are expensive, and lots of racism. Mm-hmm. This was a vote for white grievance. Mm-hmm. Don't get it twisted. And I am worried. I'm worried for myself, for my life, my
trans brothers and sisters,
trans siblings out there,
women's rights,
everybody,
people of color, just pretty much everybody but white males.
I'm worried about Chicago because Chicago is always in the crosshairs of ding dong.
Oh yeah,
and I think Chicago is going to be made an example of. So whatever.
And how do you feel that would manifest? I mean,
we're talking like stronger police force. We're going to be talking about we wants to do mass deportations. Where do you think he's going to start?
But I think Governor Pritzker is going to work hard.
Governor Pritzker is going to try really, really hard. But I'm saying that we are going to become hyper-focused because this man hates this city for some reason.
He hates all cities because they're blue.
All cities, yeah.
Anybody, she went out of her way to say, you're going to have a seat at the table. I'm going to put Republicans, in my administration. He is starting a process of, this is like Nazi Germany or Putin, loyalists. Mm-hmm. And if you didn't vote for him and you didn't like him, like the little brat in kindergarten, I don't like you at all. There's no love, there's no compassion, there's no reach across the aisle, there's nothing with him. And I just fear who he's going to install as attorney general, et cetera. But
yeah, well, we have to cross that road. But
okay.
Let's go to the phones and talk to Rich in Chicago. Rich, welcome. You're on Out Chicago.
Hey, how you doing, guys?
Oh, hanging in there, not going to let go.
Trying, Rich.
So at first I was disagreeing with you about it was the price of gas, or it was all of that noise. It was exactly what you guys were talking about. They just couldn't bring themselves, our country couldn't bring themselves to vote for a woman,
That's
a
right.
black woman.
That's the bottom line.
Yep.
That's really it.
Yep.
I feel
and
so
that's
too.
really sad.
Yep.
Yes.
I mean, I thought better of our country, and I no longer do.
I agree.
Yeah.
So
no, I'm with you, Rich. Like, again,
I'm not going to say we, but this country deserves everything it's going to get, and that's going to be really bad.
It's gonna be bad. It's gonna be bad for everybody. That's the hard thing.
We have to suffer.
Like the part of about we were right. There's nothing to gloat about. I know people always want to feel right because being right feels good. And that's how we got in this mess in the first place. You have a bunch of people who wanted to feel right. You have a bunch of people who wanted to feel white. That's the big thing right there.
Yeah.
It was nothing but racism. It was all to preserve white culture. It is to preserve, yeah. All right, Rich. Sorry.
So well, but now the thing is, we now have to turn our attention to what are we going to do about it.
I know.
Yep. But maybe not today. I don't think we need to.
Well, no, I think exactly today. We had our chance to mourn, but that's it. Now it's time to get back to work and try and preserve what we got left.
I agree. Action will make you feel better about where you're at.
It's true. It's true, Rich.
Great.
Thank you so much for giving us a call.
Right.
We really appreciate
Rich.
it. Yeah, I mean, you're right. There is something that we need to. That action is always a good way to engage, to feel like you are doing something. One of the things that I think is going to be my mantra for the next 18, 27 years, or however long he wants to stay in office, because he's going to try to do that, is to live your values. Live your values. If you want to be, if you believe in kindness, if you believe in integrity, if you believe in helping others, live that way. If you believe that you're worried about the environment, compost, recycle, do what you can. Just live your values.
Yes.
That is the whole thing.
That's what's going to save you at this point.
That is what's going to save you. I know I keep going back to what happened to a qualified candidate and moral character.
It was a woman. If it would have been a younger white male, I bet he would have won. I really do. And it's so sad. It's so hurtful as a woman.
Yeah. All right. I know the phones are being dealt with right now.
Really quick.
But it's very upsetting, this whole notion. Again, the one thing that I've been trying to stay off of social media, but one thing that's been floating around is the whole like tolerance paradox. That is where if you in a society, if you tolerate the intolerant, eventually intolerance goes away. So basically, like people, like, you can say that's your freedom of speech. You can do that, but it's like it's still hateful or whatever. But like if you, the tolerant, are saying you can do that, then where's the line? The line is gone. Everything becomes tolerable.
That's interesting.
And as somebody who has personally been affected by like tolerance policies of being people, of being attacked for being a gay man, I don't want to be tolerated.
Right.
Tolerance is an awful word.
Right.
Acceptance is so much easier. But now we're in this place where, again, there's no such thing as the common good. There's no such thing.
No,
there really isn't. Anyway, let's go
people.
to Steve. Welcome. You're on Out Chicago.
Yes, I wanted to make a couple of points. And I do agree with you. I think part of this has to do with race. The other part has to do with gender. If you look at the way in which Hillary Clinton lost in 2016, it mirrors remarkably how Kamala Harris lost this year.
Yep.
And so that brings us back to the question, was it about race or was it about the fact that, this country's not ready to elect a woman? And the other troubling part of this is that Donald Trump managed to garner a lot of the black vote, traditionally much higher than Republicans usually can garner. He managed to get a lot of Hispanic votes, especially among Hispanic men. And, of course, when you look at the scholarship in that regard, Hispanic men come from very traditional cultures. The notion of, a woman leading us and so forth, not the kind of thing that you tend to find in Central South American countries, in Mexico and so forth. You might find it in Western Europe. You might find it a few other places, but this is not the culture that originates that mindset. So, and this idea that, oh, yes, the economy had no role. No, the economy had a significant role. We actually asked people, and they are concerned. Now, irrationally, I would argue, inflation is down to 2.1%.
Right.
Wages are now catching up to inflation. And unemployment is at historic lows, what scholars refer to as full employment, because you can have 2, 3.5%, 4% unemployment and be at full employment.
Yes.
I can go down a long list of things that we've done right, but the New York Times coined this phrase. It's vibe session. People can't point to anything tangible. They just, I feel that things aren't going well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's because you're watching Fox News and you're tuning into your social media outlet, but that's not objective economics.
No.
That's not how things work. We actually measure things in this world, and we can tell you that, no, the economy's doing well. But when you fall back on, but I'm paying more for a cheeseburger than I did in 2020. Yeah, if you're expecting prices to go back to 2020,
good luck.
That has never happened.
Never.
Yeah, the only time that happens is in a deep recession or a depression where you get deflation.
Yep.
So, like I said, we'll be studying this for a long time. I don't think people who voted for Trump turned out for one reason. I think different people turned out for different reasons. I think you touched on a lot of them, but it's not one thing.
Yeah, well, thank you. You are absolutely correct, Steve. Thanks for calling in. And here's the thing. Because we are a myopic society, we have lost critical thinking skills. We've lost the ability to do that, to look at data and to be like, oh, this is what's really going on. And it's now like feelings. It's all feelings.
And when you look at the data broken down by gender, it is clearly an anti-woman vote, because white men 60% versus 37% for Harris. Black men Black women, 91%, Latino women, 60%, but their counterparts, the Latino men, 43% for Harris. So 60% of a majority of Latino women went for Harris, a minority of Latino. So they're not all on the same page here. Because why? What's the one difference? They all live in the same household. They pay the same prices. What's the difference? It was a woman.
Yep.
They were not ready to elect a woman. They're still not ready. And I'm just beginning to lose hope in my lifetime that we will see this because of 60% of white men, 60% of white men, and 53% of white women. They should be ashamed of themselves.
Yep. Let's go to Helen in Huntley. Welcome. You're on Out Chicago.
Hi. I agree with everything you said and everything everybody else says, but the thing that is really bothering me is the blame game going on right now. 3 months ago, everybody thought Biden did a wonderful thing by turning the election over to Kamala.
Yes, yeah.
And everybody, and now he should have done it sooner. He wasn't doing it, didn't do it the right way. He should have not ran. Then a week ago, everybody thought Kamala was going to win. She's wonderful. She's everything. She's running the best campaign that they've ever seen. And now she didn't talk about this. She didn't talk about that. It's a blame game. And even on the last news I heard, even Bernie Sanders is jumping on her, and that is making me just furious because everything that we believed 3 months ago and a week ago was absolutely true.
Yep. You are
Helen, I agree with you. And then hearing Bernie jump, his comments were really disheartening to me.
Yes. Anyway, that's the thing that's bothering me. I just want to tell everybody, shut up and pay attention to how you felt a week ago.
Yeah. Thank you, Helen. Yep. She also, thanks so much for calling. And also to piggyback onto that, again, she had 107-day campaign as opposed to somebody who's been running for basically 4 years.
Yeah. I think she should start running tomorrow as well. Just like remember his first term, what he said after the inauguration, I'm officially starting my campaign to run again. And everything in his entire administration was based on him getting elected again. Not actually doing the work and saying, I hope to earn this, but actually saying, but building a 4-year administration based on him just keeping power. I think she should say tomorrow, guess what? I'm going to run again. I'm starting right now, just like he did. And get used to it because I'm going to be commenting. I'm going to be out there, and I'm going to make you remember that I'm the one that you should have voted for in the first place.
Yeah, well,
I still think she's a great candidate.
Me, I as well. I proudly cast my vote for her. It's. Anyway, let's go back to the phones. Dr. Roosevelt. Roosevelt, welcome. You're on Out Chicago.
How you guys doing? Thank you for taking my call.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Roosevelt.
I'm gonna give you 3 names: Rupert Murdoch, Elon Musk, and Peter Thiel.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Billionaires bought this election. Billionaires bought this election.
I'm gonna go a step behind, guys. All multi-billionaires.
Yep.
All immigrants. People, pay attention. Immigrants.
Yeah, but they're the right kind of immigrants.
Because they're white males.
Right. Mm-hmm. But let me go back where you started, Helen. I heard my own people. I had to part my ways with a show that I would call. For 2 years, I was calling this show, Spanish speaking, 2 hours a day, every day. On and on, I kept on telling them, promote our people to go vote. Get the message across. No, this is what was on that show. I had to part my ways this week. Constantly calling Biden and Kamala Harris genocide leaders. Mm-hmm. Okay? This is my people, Mexican Americans. I heard them. Mm-hmm. Yep. And I said, you're doing this, you're dividing yourself, you're doing exactly what he wants you to do. Divide and conquer. I heard people with and without papers saying this. And I said, concentrate. And another criticism was Obama promised and Biden promised immigration reform. And I would try to school them. This doesn't work the way you think it works, where a president decides yes or no, he's going to do immigration reform. If he's blocked by a Republican Congress, it's over.
Yeah.
It's not going to be immigration reform. And I told him this. If all three parts of our government are Democrats, there will be immigration reform. But look what happened. The opposite happened.
Yep.
Okay?
Yeah.
So, and on and on. And then the last week, guess what? The lady that runs the show, guess what? She was doing what I told her to do originally, which is go vote, go vote, go vote. There would be people, and it's my people too, 53% of men, to your point, and you're right. It's the I'm macho thing. It's the, the males.
Yes.
But more than that is the point that they were saying, do the protest vote. Don't vote for either one of them. And another thing that is a key to, and I'm going to close it with this. Another thing that was a key, this lady that ran the show, that's why I had to part my ways. She would invite people of all opinions. And people that were behind Trump would pick up Fox News talking points and drop them off on her show. And I said, you're letting the enemy in. Why do I call him an enemy? Because he's an enemy to our people. He's an enemy to this country.
Yes.
He is a traitor.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's too little, too late. And the money, guys, the last thing, I know I said it before, the last thing is they flipped the youth vote. Kids were influenced by influencers that were paid directly by Elon Musk.
Yes.
Not to mention Putin. There's a lot of Putin money that we'll never know how much Putin put in on this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was bought.
All this, go ahead.
Yeah, Roosevelt. Thank you. You are absolutely correct.
I agree with you, Roosevelt.
It is a shame to know that the election was bought by billionaires.
Citizens United. We knew how bad it was when it got when it happened, and we're seeing the effects of it. We continue to see the effects of it.
All righty. We do need to take a break, but real quick, there seems to be somebody from Park Ridge who wants to have in support of hope, and we could use a hopeful message.
Okay, come on, Park Ridge. Who's there?
Line 2. I don't know who this is, but hello.
I don't know if I can grab them yet.
All right. Well, if we could just go and say hello to them.
They're still being talked.
Oh, they're still being talked to. Never mind then. Actually, we should probably take a break then. Because we got to have hope. We do have to have hope. And right now, we need community more than ever. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we are going to be speaking with Brian Johnson, CEO of Equality Illinois, who is one of those helpers that we need to look out for. So stick around. You're listening to Out Chicago right here on WCPT.
Hey, this is Mark Patton, and I'm from Spring Clean, My Nightmare on Elm Street, and you're listening to Out Chicago.
Welcome back to Out Chicago. Scott Duff here, along with Ella Miller, and I think we're all living our Nightmare on Elm Street. Aren't we?
Yes.
Yeah, because clearly the results of the election, it was not what millions of folks was hoping for. And like I said earlier in the show, I am a Gen Xer, and I was taught some really important values by people like Fred Rogers. If you haven't seen the Mr. Rogers documentary, I think I need to have that on like repeat. Like
I saw it on a plane and cried my eyes out.
Cried your eyes out, and it's always good to remember his words to look for the helpers in dark times. And there is no one is more of a helper than Brian C. Johnson, CEO of Equality Illinois. Brian, thank you so much for joining us today.
Scott and Ellen, it's so good to be with you. How are you and your loved ones?
Girl,
we're holding on. We're holding on for dear life.
I've got like burpy tummy all the time. I feel like astronaut diapers might have to come into play. It is just awful. How are you holding up?
How about you, Brian? Yeah.
You and your husband and your daughter.
Yeah, I think I'm of two minds, quite honestly. One is super clear-eyed and emboldened about the risks that we face and the challenges ahead, and eager to tackle them. And I wouldn't be sharing with you all the truth if we weren't scared and having really tough conversations in my home about what do we need to do to protect our daughter and our family against an administration who is very eager to come for our rights.
Yep. So what does the road ahead look like for LGBTQ folks? It's funny. I'm glad that you said that you were clear-eyed, because I've had this strange like eerie sense of calm, just to be like, okay, let's just focus, see what's going on. But what are you all looking at Equality Illinois? Like, what do you think? What do you see as potentials that are coming down the road? I know it's like look into a crystal ball, but I don't think we have to look too far except for Project 25.
I was going to say they wrote it out in a blueprint. Yep. I mean, first of all, I just have to remind all of us that we have always been a resilient, brave community who is really good at taking care of each other during hard times.
Yeah, we are.
And so,
we really are.
That is our strength. Like, we know chosen family like nobody else.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And
yes.
we're going to lean into that. And I think that is important to hold on to. I think as we begin to see things clear, I think there are 4 types of things we are worried about, particularly in Illinois, where we have so many protections, right? So we're very grateful for that. So I think one is we're concerned around the inclusion of LGBTQ plus people in our public education system. We have great laws on the books here for that, but what happens if the federal government threatens to defund public schools that teach about LGBTQ plus history or LGBTQ plus public health? I think that's a real risk. I think, 2, we're worried about access to medical care, particularly gender-affirming care, right? Again, what if the federal government threatens to defund providers that provide meaningful life-saving services to queer people, especially trans people? I think we're worried about the non-discrimination protections, not broadly, but in and around the federal government. So if you are a federal employee, if you are a federal contractor, we're worried that your rights to be affirmed in the workplace may be threatened. And then I think, there's 4th around concerns, and I think it's overlapped, is military service, right? Mm-hmm. I think the opportunities for queer people, LGBTQ plus people, to serve our country openly and bravely in the military, I think will be curtailed. So those are the first, I think those are the 4 areas we're most immediately concerned about: public education, healthcare, federal employment, and military.
Just a couple little things.
Is that
Just
it?
a few.
And Brian, with him having the Senate and likely having the House, what are our means to fight back on all this?
Well, I think there are 3 things we absolutely have to do. I mean, first is we have to make sure that Illinois' protections are as strong as they can be. We have pro-equality supermajorities in the Illinois House and Senate. Mm-hmm. We have very supportive statewide elected officials, and we need to make sure that we are emboldening them to shore up our rights there. I think number 2 is, we need to make sure that we are continuing to organize going forward. And I say this, please, everybody, if you need the break, take the break, rest up. This is important. But we need to be making sure for the midterms, for the next presidential, we are getting federal people elected to federal office who are willing to stand up for us. I think the third thing, and I think this is really, really important, is we cannot get into solely a defensive crouch. Right. There can be this temptation just to say, no more wins. We shouldn't be bold anymore. Let's just make sure that we're shoring up our rights and playing defense. And that is really important, Scott and Ellen. Yeah. Absolutely. But if all we're doing is playing defense, we allow the other side to have all the time, energy, and resources to set the terms of the debate.
Amen.
And so we need to claim that back. We need to be making sure that we are requiring every school district in Illinois to teach public health and safety education that is LGBTQ affirming. We need to make sure that we are protecting the lives of sex workers by making sure we are decriminalizing sex ed, right? We need to make sure that we are advancing LGBTQ plus rights, because Illinois should be even more protective of its queer population, and we need the people who want to come for us to be reacting to us and not just setting the terms of the debate that we have to respond to.
Yeah, well, now, Brian, I'm glad you brought that up, Brian, because, like, you know, it is Equality Illinois, so it is all Illinois. Have you heard anything from, like, downstate to, like, what the reactions are to, because you work with agencies across the entire state. Clearly up here in Chicago, we're heavily blue, but then moving down, well, just go to Schaumburg, you know? I mean, but downstate too. Like, what have you been hearing with the other agencies that you partner with? Because Equality Illinois is for all Illinois.
That's right. And, you know, I had the great privilege of spending most of the last week traveling around the state, knocking on doors, supporting our pro-equality candidates. And it's just a reminder, we have never had more LGBTQ plus elected officials in the state than we do now.
Amazing.
And they are everywhere, right? I mean, we have Claire Kilman, who is an openly trans member of the Carbondale, Illinois City Council. We have at least 2 members, maybe even 3 of the McLean County Board and Bloomington Normal are openly LGBTQ plus. We have, you know, Alana Banks, who is an out Black trans woman on the Decatur School Board, right? So we have LGBTQ plus people everywhere.
Fabulous.
Who are in public office, who are willing to stand up and say, not just stand up for the narrow focus of LGBTQ plus rights, but saying, when we fight for a government that protects all people, that has a strong social safety net, that ensures everybody has an equal and affirming access to the resources that they need, Illinois is stronger.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, I've heard more people this week saying they're so grateful to be living in Illinois right now.
Yes. Yeah, and I should say, too, like, that's not an accident. I want to be really clear. I worry sometimes that people think we're just lucky to be in Illinois.
Nope.
Illinois is LGBTQ plus affirming and supportive because of the hard work of so many of your listeners, right? Who are people who are knocking on doors, making donations, calling their legislators. It is not an accident that we live in a state that has worked so hard to protect LGBTQ plus Illinoisans. It is the result of hard work, brave queer people in leadership, and supportive champions.
Yep, and 100% the importance of community. And speaking of, Equality Illinois is hosting a virtual panel on the 12th at 5 p.m. Central. Which I'm so grateful for, because I remember, like I said earlier in the show, I remember back in 2016, there was a similar moment that was just 4 people in Chicago, and we all gathered together, and like community leaders, activists, champions, advocates, all of that. And it was so helpful to be surrounded by community. What is planned for this virtual panel on the 12th?
Yeah, so what we're going to do, again, thank you for this. It's Tuesday the 12th from 5 to 6 via Zoom. We are going to be walking through what we understand to be the greatest challenges that we need to be facing, early stage hypotheses about what we need to be doing to respond to that, and ways to support LGBTQ plus led and serving organizations in this fight. You know, we are in constant conversation with state and national LGBTQ plus leaders. As a matter of fact, I will be at a week-long gathering after Thanksgiving with the heads of almost every LGBTQ plus led civil rights organization in the country, trying to come together to, you know, identify the biggest risks and to map the plan forward. And so this is going to be a little bit of a kind of information session that's kind of going to lay out the current landscape and the roadmap going forward to the best that we know, right? This is a heavily dynamic, constantly evolving, ever-changing environment we're in.
Yep.
But we're going to do our best to make sure that queer people, trans folks, and all of our allies have a decent sense of what we think the landscape looks like.
Yep, and one of the best ways to live your values is to go and support causes that mirror those values. And we want to make sure that everybody knows that Equality Illinois has invited you to join a virtual panel discussion with experts, advocates, and community leaders on November 12th from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Central. For more information, go to equalityillinois.us. You can find out how to register for that, how to get the links, and also just to the incredible work that Equality Illinois does for LGBTQ folks and their allies across the state. Brian Johnson, thank you so much for taking time out today to join us. Sending nothing but love to your family and to everybody who is out there fighting the good fight the way you are. You really are the helpers that we are looking for.
Wishing you strength. Gird your loins. We got a battle ahead, but I am confident, Brian, you can lead us through it here in Illinois.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Ellen. I'm so grateful for you all. And here we go.
Here we go. All right, then. Here we go to a break. So go get some coffee, maybe a mimosa, or whatever, Bellini, and we'll see you in the second hour. Stick around. You're listening to Out Chicago right here on WCPT.
I'd like to welcome you to WCPT AM's Out Chicago. Think of us as Sunday brunch with your gay best friends. Now please welcome your host, Scott Duff.
And welcome back to the second hour of Out Chicago. Scott Duff here along with Ellen Miller. We are
holding it together.
We're holding it together. Barely.
But we're trying. We're trying our best.
Yeah, we are trying our best. And I always say this is probably prejudicial experience things, but I always say during the hard times, look to the artists. The artists are the ones that are going to be holding up the mirror to what's going on around the world. No question. And really, especially the comedians. We didn't even talk about your time with Judy Gold.
No, we'll talk about it.
We'll talk about that later on. But I think right now the artists are going to be arting really, really hard, and we're going to need that. And fortunately, we've got a couple of really great folks to be talking to. A little bit later on this hour, we're going to be speaking with playwright Philip Dawkins and director Colm Summers about Philip's new play, The Comedian. It follows a queer relationship as they navigate fame, and it's all told through a series of stand-up sets. But before we get to that, I'm so grateful to be speaking to somebody who I have long admired. Amazing human being, an incredible director and artist. Timeline Theater and the Court Theater have teamed up for their new production of Falsettos, which is a tribute to family in its many forms and a celebration of the beauty, complexity, and necessity of love. And joining us now is Associate Artistic Director for Timeline and Director of Falsettos, Nick Bowling. Nick, welcome to the show.
Hi, Scott. It's so nice to talk to you. How's it going?
You know, I've said that I'm hanging in there, not going to let go. That is where I am.
And I'm here arting, as you say, as much as I possibly can.
Girl, I want you to art your heart out. Art your heart out. Oh, my gosh.
Doing my best.
How are you? First of all, you're in the middle, like you started previews yesterday, I believe, or this weekend. Yeah. How well, first, and all of this going on, how are you holding up?
I'm completely underslept and completely overwhelmed.
Yes.
So I'm at my very best for a radio interview.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Sometimes that's the best way. Sometimes, Nick, that's best because your adrenaline kicks in. So
that's right, Ellen. Thank you.
Go with it. Go with it, my friend.
So, Nick, before we jump into the world of Falsettos, can you tell folks a little bit? First of all, congratulations, everything that's going on with Timeline Theater. You've got a space you're getting your own space and everything. Can you remind folks about the mission and a little bit of the history of Timeline Theater?
We started we were a bunch of graduates from DePaul University, and we started Timeline coming up on 28 years ago.
I know.
God, it feels forever. Scott, I feel like I've known you for about that long.
It has been that long,
baby
yes.
children when we first met.
Here you are now.
Anyway, we started Timeline back then, and I was artistic director at the time. And then the funny thing is, I actually got a job almost at the very same time working as associate artistic director at the Court with Charlie Newell at the time. So this all has sort of come full circle, and I'm working at the Court now for the first time as a director almost 30 years later.
Wait, is it really your first time?
It's my first time directing. I directed some readings, all that back when I was, I was in my late 20s at the time or something, and so it was a very long time ago, and it's been such a wild ride to be back at this place that in some ways, and I had to kind of leave my artistic director job at Timeline, so I'm off topic already, but and PJ became artistic director back then because I became this title at Court Theater and blah, blah, blah. But so anyway, it's a real kind of reunion in a way for me and a really wild experience, at the same time that Charlie's sort of leaving the court and being there working with him on the show, amongst other terrific people at the court, Gabby and Angel, et cetera. But anyway, so we started Timeline all those years ago with a mission of plays inspired by history that connect to today's social political issues. That's what Timeline does. We don't do a lot of musicals, mostly because we haven't been able to afford them usually in the past. And Charlie called me up and said, "Hey, are you interested in doing something at the court? We're looking for a musical. Do you have something in mind, something that's small, et cetera?" And, I said, we've been talking about doing Falsettos for almost 13 years at Timeline. So it's been on our hit list for a long time. And it's something that I think really hits both missions, because Court's mission is about classic plays that are considered classics. And they were so excited about Falsettos because they're really interested in creating a new canon of quote-unquote gay classics, which is an interesting idea, that we all know the kind of the straight classics, many of which were probably written by gay people, but aren't really considered quote-unquote gay classics. And so I suggested and pitched that Falsettos is really something that should be put into that gay canon of classic plays. It's really one of the very first shows about gay people, and it's also presents us not just as victims and as traumatized or as kind of silly gay secondary characters. The gay character in the center of this whole show is Marvin, who's flawed and in some ways we get to see him at his very worst and we get to see him at his very best, and that in fact is kind of the journey of the show. Wow, you wound me up and I'm already going.
I know, that's good. And Nick, I'm glad you're mentioning, because not everybody who's listening knows the story of Falsetto, so I was hoping you'd expound on that a little bit.
Yeah. I think the basic story is a man who comes out of the closet at age 40. In 1979, he's married to a woman and has a 10-year-old son, and he falls in love with a man named Whizzer in the show. And then it's basically most of the rest of the show is trying to figure out how to make that work. And it's a fascinating thing to think about, being in the closet for 40 years. All of us that were in the closet for some amount of time understand how that affected us and what effects that had on us. I think on Marvin, it had some awful, terrible effects on him, and it brings out some really terrible things out of him because, in a way, he's still a child at age 40. He's still, and that's, I think, what the title really, in some ways, at least to me, is what it means, is that this 40-year-old man is still a falsetto adolescent child that doesn't really know how to behave in the world that he's now exploring, which is a gay life and a world of bringing together his former sort of quote-unquote straight life into this gay world.
Great. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you were talking about the mission of both Court and Timeline in terms of how things are reverberating with history and the Court's mission to doing classics. This was my very first Broadway show that I ever saw when I was 18 years old. I know Ellen's already given me a hanky because I will cry during this. For real. And it was the first time that I ever saw gay people as the center. It's flawed, complicated, hilarious, loving, sexy. Like, it was the first time I ever saw that. And it was like, and I was 18 years old. And it was one of those things that just kind of changed me as a gay man or a gay kid, I guess, it really is. It is such a powerful work, especially as it delves into issues with the AIDS crisis and all of that. As you've been working, your cast is just incredible. The little blurbs that have been rehearsal footage that's been leaked out, I'm like, oh my God, your Trina is amazing. But
he is.
incredible. But what have you found, have you discovered as an ensemble, as a director, the issues that are reverberating between the late 70s, early 80s and now?
Yeah, that's fascinating. In some ways, let me say, Scott, that also working on the show, I find myself in a teary, blubbering mess so often, and I'm not much of a crier, frankly. But this show, it hits me in such a personal way because I was the same age as the kid, the 10-year-old kid in 1979. That's sort of the age I was. The things that this is mostly, it's funny, everybody's got their own journey with this show, and all the people that are in the show, most of them really didn't live through this in a way. They didn't really understand what it was like. Stephen, who plays Marvin, I think he came out to his family when he was like 12.
Oh, my
and I was
gosh.
like, oh, my God, I love that. And he did it in this very mature way of sitting down as parents and saying, I want to share that I am gay. And their experiences are, now they've all got different, obviously, we all have different experiences, but they mostly didn't live through this. And so I'll tell you, one of the fascinating things has been seeing the kind of this world through the eyes of Gen Z and millennials that are mostly who are in the show, and we've been bringing in all these amazing guys that lived through this time period, and the sort of shocking things and the sort of themes that keep coming up is, there really wasn't a gay community like that. That really strikes them that gays and lesbians didn't really think of themselves as a single community at the time. That there was a real and there's still sometimes tensions between our communities, but there is certainly a sense of a whole community now that maybe wasn't galvanized in 79 and 80 and 81, and how AIDS really in some ways destroyed a lot of things, and for me it terrified me to come out of the closet until I was in my early 20s because it meant, in many ways it meant a fear and admitting something that there was a big sense of, you're going to die if you're gay, and that's what a weird thing to put into the mind of a 10-year-old kid, who's struggling with that. So I guess in some ways we are dealing, what I'm fascinated by are all these ripples that this crisis created, and also the ripples that being in the closet have created. That's the thing for me that's been so personal. It's like really dealing with my own personal issues and seeing how a lot of them have to do with being in the closet, and the kind of the opening that started to happen of the closet doors in the sexual revolution of the 70s and post Stonewall, and the beginnings of that, and to think about what we're really focusing on in some ways is, wow, what could have been had AIDS not come and sort of closed that closet door again on especially young people. Now, of course, it had the opposite effect on many gay men and gay people that were out of, and LGBTQIA folks that were sort of out of the closet. It strengthened them, of course, and it made a community. So on one hand, it did that, I think, but also it killed so many people and scared so many people and pushed people back into a closet. So it's the reverberations of that, I think, that we're really fascinated by, and how, this is a show about love ultimately, and how love can fight through those problems and create family, create connection, and create authenticity, and help you find who you really are, and help you. In some ways, the show is about growing up in a simple way. It's about a bar mitzvah, which is a ceremony about growing up in the Jewish faith, and the whole show is about growing up and becoming an adult in some ways, and becoming who you really are, which we all know. I mean, many people that are, gay and who lived in a closet know that you stop growing up when you're in a closet. In many ways, you kind of kill that part of you that matures, and so those are the things that we've really been focusing on, I'd say, and that have been themes that are really affecting us. I think that I think they're the kind of things people are coming away with from the show.
Yeah, well, Nick Bowling, it is so funny because until now, like I love I love the show. We've had William Finn on the show. I cried through the whole thing, through the whole interview. But I'm sitting there going, like, every time I listen to it, I'm like, Marvin is a jerk. He's a real jerk. Yeah. And it wasn't for me to realize until our discussion right now that coming out of the closet at such a late age, it feels like when folks do that, the later people come out, they go through a second adolescence almost, because now they're like
free.
Well, but not even that. They're able to be sexy. They're able to talk about sex and have sex and do all of these things that you tried when you were like a teenager. And then there's a sort of carefree sort of thing. And I never, that notion really hadn't sunk in. And I'm like, oh, it is about adolescence. It is about growing up, and it is about forging a community together.
It's never too late for a happy childhood.
Right. We've been talking a lot about in our cast, and they're younger too. And they talk about this phrase "baby gay." So there's been a lot about the baby gay, and that Marvin is like a baby gay. He says at the beginning of the show, "I want it all. I want to keep my wife and my kid and my new friend, quote unquote friend. I want everything." And I think that idea that he's like this hungry young vampire, that's the most dangerous of all. I'm taking connecting this to Twilight, which is a little odd, but that idea that there's an element of that adolescent idea that he thinks he deserves it all, and in some ways he does. I think the audience can understand that. I've been kind of broken for 40 years, and now I should be able to have whatever I want. But of course, that doesn't take into account the wife that's like, yeah, but I don't want that, actually. That's not what I want. Or a son who's like, that freaks me out. I don't want any of this, really. I don't even want to talk about it.
And one of the things also that's so fabulous about both Timeline Theater and Court Theater, you've teamed up to do this new production of Falsettos that is opening. It's already in previews right now.
Yeah, in previews, right? We open the 16th.
The 16th, yeah. But the thing that's always so great about both organizations is your dedication to the dramaturgy and the other components, the extras. And James Lapine, who co-wrote the book, is going to be in town for a post-show discussion on the 14th. What?
Yeah. Isn't that incredible? Some of the folks working on the production have a very strong connection. Jenny, I'm forgetting her last name right now, but she's a good friend of James and got him to agree to come out, and she's going to do an interview with him after the show on next Thursday. This upcoming Thursday, which is just. I mean, I'm fascinated. I'm also terrified. Here he's coming. He helped write the thing.
You'll be fine.
You'll be great.
So it's always overwhelming. But it's really incredible that he's going to be here.
Yeah, it really is great. And again, the show Falsettos, it really is about love, family, and just good old family values towards in a queer perspective. So thank you so much for your patience, for waiting for 13 years to do this play, and for doing this play this time, and also as a public thing, I want to thank you, Nick Bowling, for your time at the Court Theater. There was, as a young gay actor was called in for almost every show for one season there, and that was because of you. And you gave me so much confidence in my ability to be an artist that I don't think I've ever said thank you for that. So I want to thank you personally for that, Nick. I'm going to cry now. Damn it. But for real,
that's sweet of you, Scott. You're a light of an actor and an artist, so it was a joy to have you there.
I know, I'm amazing. So, but what I'm really looking forward to, I'm going to be there on Friday. Cannot wait to see it. But make sure everybody get your tickets to Falsettos Falsettos, presented by Timeline and Court Theater. It's now playing at the Court Theater in Hyde Park, and it's running through December 8th. If you really want to have something that'll give you the feels and just delightful music, and go, and I'm going to try not to sing along, go to timelinetheater.com, because I cannot wait to be sitting and watching Jason play baseball. We're watching Jason play baseball. We're watching Jewish kids who cannot play baseball play baseball. Yes, Nick Bowling.
Oh, thank you both. And I just have to say, it's Jennifer Breyer who is bringing Baseball Pine to us. So that's what's happening on Thursday. So get those tickets too.
Get those tickets too, and make sure and break legs as you go through the preview process. I know you got 2 shows today, and you're running on fumes. So again, thank you so much for joining us today.
Appreciate you, Nick. Thank you.
Nick Bowling, Associate Artistic Director of Timeline Theater and Director of Falsettos.
Thanks so much.
Break a leg.
Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye. We're going to take a break, and we're going to keep the art talk going. We're going to chat with playwright Philip Dawkins and director Colm Summers about the new play, The Comedians, at Raven Theater. So stick around. You're listening to Out Chicago right here on WCPT.
Hi, this is Renee Taylor. You're listening to Out Chicago. WCPT 820.
Welcome back to Out Chicago. Scott Duff here, along with Ella Miller.
I can only imagine the expletives that would be coming out of Renee Taylor's mouth if we had her on this morning.
Oh my gosh. It would be like there's not a bleep fast enough and long enough to bleep
well, when it comes to the orange one.
Yes.
That's what I...
Yes.
But anyway, she's great.
But, Renee, she brings us laughter.
Every time we smile.
And we all need a little bit of laughter right now.
Oh, boy, don't we ever.
And Philip Dawkins' new play, The Comedians, follows a queer relationship as they navigate fame, and it's told through a series of stand-up sets. It's getting ready for a limited engagement at Raven Theater, and joining us, welcome back to the show, is playwright Philip Dawkins and director Colm Summers. Philip and Colm, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you. Hi there.
Hello, thank you both for joining us today. Philip, got a question for you. What was the initial creative spark for The Comedians? Did you have a long history or a relationship with stand-up?
I certainly have a long enjoyment and appreciation of it, and have been always I feel about stand-up kind of the way I feel about swimming with sharks. I assume I'll do it at one point in my life.
How do you really feel about it?
Scares the bejesus out of me. And so, I always had this kind of moth to a flame appreciation and attraction to it. And then, that little thing, the pandemic hit. And at the very beginning of it is when I started writing this, and I had questions of how am I going to tell a romantic comedy in a world where I don't even know if actors are going to be able to be in the same space again, in the same room, and occupy the same space. How do we get at connection, and how do we get at love, and questions we were all having about life, not just theater. And so I started thinking about formats and arts and structures where people are technically alone or solitary, and yet there's a very strong relationship. And to me, the first thing that popped into my brain was, stand-up. It's such an intimate relationship with the audience, and yet you're technically doing it by yourself. And so I thought, well, what about stand-ups in love? What about stand-ups in love?
What about stand-ups in love?
And, yeah. And then it just kind of snowballed from there.
Yeah, love it. So, Colm, what has been your process? This has got to be odd. It's first of all, I was fortunate enough to read an earlier draft. I know it's gone through some retooling, and which is why we love new work and the workshop process. But Colm, what is your process in terms of directing this? Because it's basically two stand-up comedians. So it's you've got a long stand-up set, and then you've got another long, what has been your process doing this?
Oh my God, it's only been swimming with sharks, Scott.
No, it's been amazing. I think something that Philip and I have talked about a lot is walking that fine line, as you point out, between what is a stand-up set and what is a play. And I think, my impulse as director is like, let's create a container. Let's make this feel as immersively like a performance, a comic event as possible. Let's create the Raven Comedy Club. But ultimately, the lesson for me has been pare it back and let the play do the talking. The more that we work on it, the simpler the performance outcome becomes. It's really about how do we position our performers as well as possible to just get up on stage and do it.
Yeah, 100%. Have y'all been going and checking out because I know both of you are not in permanently Chicago people. Have you gone while you've been in town? Have you been checking out the Chicago comedy scene to kind of for inspiration?
I mean, I think the responsible answer would be yes.
But in reality...
However, we are on a schedule here.
To be fair, I think, unfortunately, our schedule is rehearsing at night.
Right.
And there have been things that I have wanted to check out, and I thought, oh my gosh, I want to see that, but we're working.
Mm-hmm.
So luckily, I lived in Chicago for 21 years. And so I have 21 years of having done that,
right?
And loving the deeply rich, embarrassingly rich comedic culture of Chicago. I'm very aware of it and have been lucky to take part in that. So I'm glad to kind of rely on my previous unintended research just through fandom, because I've been a bad boy these last couple of weeks.
And I think that 20 years of fandom was translated into one of the most exciting elements of this production, which is, an idea that we incepted in collaboration with Sarah Slight, the artistic director at Raven Theater, which is to use the production as an opportunity to bring in queer comedians from the Chicago scene as guest artists to kick off the show. So at every performance of the comedians at the Raven, there will be a new guest comedian from the local queer comedy scene, and we're really grateful to Manny Petty, who's a local comedian who's been helping us out with that.
Nice. Are you evolving the script at all to reflect what's going on currently in a post-election world at all?
What on earth do you mean?
I don't know. Just a thought of.
I don't know.
No. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because the play, it's a comedy set. Going back to that, is it a play? Is it a comedy set? And the answer is yes. In the play part of it, it spans the last 3 years. Mm-hmm. So the first collection of comedy sets actually happened back in 2021, 22, 23. So we don't actually get into this moment until toward the end of the play. But obviously, I think the way that current events, let's call them, have influenced the play is just understanding the context in which we're seeing this play, what feelings might our audience be bringing in? Mm-hmm. What experiences are we having in the world when we enter into this space to laugh and think and have a catharsis? So in that way, yes, very much so. Mm-hmm. We are thinking of that. Mm-hmm.
And it's in the DNA of our rehearsal process guides. I mean, I was in rehearsal with the team the night of the election, and honestly, we were sitting on our breaks watching as the results rolled in, and it was hard not to feel like the play was in direct conversation with the events that were unfolding across the country. And I think, if folks need to process what they're going through, particularly in our community, I think this is a good opportunity to do that.
Well, and I believe this about this play, but I believe this just in general. I think queer people laughing, queer people loving, mm-hmm. queer people of color laughing and loving is, unfortunately, in this moment, a protest.
Yeah.
It's a protest, and I think our joy can be our activism, and mm-hmm. I think that, without getting too, up my own butt about it, this is a way of, we have to laugh or we'll die.
Yeah.
That's right.
So this is a moment of equipping ourselves with some joy so we can go back out there and be in the trenches.
Yeah.
I agree, and I think comedians in this kind of a era that we're about to enter again are absolutely key to the joy that we're going to need to hold on to. So it's a good timing for this play for sure.
Yeah, and it's so funny. Like, I hadn't even thought about how y'all were in rehearsals when on election night, and it reminded me of actually back in 2016. I was in tech for I Am My Own Wife, and you feel these strange reverberations, like you were saying, like it's a conversation with what's going on right now, which is a testament to like great writing and great direction. But there's something healing for the artist to be able to like have this experience, this moment at this time, and also for the audience, like you said, Phillips, that a bunch of queer people laughing is a form of protest.
Yeah. And one that is, reaffirming to ourselves and equipping to ourselves. And I have to say that the test audiences that we've had coming in have really laughed their fannies off. Like, it's been a nice, I think people are ready to laugh. I know I am, or needing to laugh. And so it is very much, it's fulfilling the assignment so far. So I if you feel like maybe you need to laugh for a little bit, I think this is the perfect opportunity to do it.
Yeah, 1,000%. Colm, can you tell our listeners just a little bit? I know we've been kind of dancing around with The Comedians by Philip Dawkins, which is coming up for a limited engagement at the Raven Theater. We know it's a relationship between two stand-ups and it's told through stand-up sets. Who are these two stand-ups?
So you're asking me to tell the story of Philip's play? You're about to hear me get fired.
Well.
Thank God. Wow, this is really going to be a treat to your listeners. The Comedians is the story of a Gen X stand-up, a guy whose career is maybe settled into a rhythm in midlife, and his first time falling in love. And he falls in love with a much younger comedian. It's not close, but it's not gross, as the play says, who's a millennial, who's on the rise, and also battling an addiction issue. And so the play, in a series of stand-up sets, tells the story of their relationship. And as an audience, you're invited between sets to imagine what happens as their relationship comes to fruition and our young comedian battles the disease of alcoholism. And despite the sort of maudlin tone I struck at the end of that synopsis, it's a barrel of laughs and full of love and hope. And I think the production that we're mounting at the Raven is really a love story, not just for queer folks, but a kind of love story about comedy. I know I've heard Philip talk about sitting during the pandemic watching stand-up specials and tracking the lives of his favorite comedians, and I think something that I've been really excited to sort of texture with the actors is that fine line between theater and comedy, and I think it's going to be a really unique experience for our audience at the Raven.
100%. Well, after working on this play, have you thought about dipping your toe into those shark-filled waters and doing a little stand-up?
God, are you out of your mind?
Come on, you got to draw the line somewhere.
We just decided last night that, because we have openers on every night, we just decided last night that for our final preview, I'm going to be the opener.
What?
Which I used to think that the scariest thing I could hear before an opening night of one of my plays is Philip, we need you to lose 5 minutes from the play. But it's actually, Philip, we need you to do a tight 5.
We need you to do 5, yeah. Well,
so I guess I will be breaking that seal for myself in front of that performance.
Oh my gosh, I am agape. I am agog and aghast. That's amazing.
Thank you. I will be channeling you and praying to all the comedy gods. Thank you, guys.
Girl, you don't need to channel anybody. You are a funny person. So,
thank you. I hope that is true.
Yeah, well there
we'll
we
find
go.
out. No, I'm sure you are. I'm sure you are. You wouldn't do it otherwise.
So Colm, when folks come to see the Comedians in a limited engagement at the Raven Theater, what do you hope folks leave with?
Oh, that's a great question. The question that I have been mulling over as we move through rehearsal and the sort of guiding question that the actors and I have been asking in the room is, what can we learn from having to let go of the thing that we love the most? And I think that's a question that the play asks, and I think that question is in orbit at the moment. I don't know anyone in our community who isn't asking that question after Tuesday. I know I am, and I think this play is providing me with a lot of, I won't say answers, it's too soon to have answers to anything, but it's definitely leading me to better questions. And so I hope that people come and ask that question with us and laugh while they do.
All right. Oh, we got deep there. I love that.
I'm a deep guy, Scott, you know?
I know. Well, we cannot wait.
Deeply shallow.
I know, you are completely shallow, Philip Dawkins. That's why, yes. That's why it's a perfect pairing. We got the shallow end and the deep end all going forward together. And let me tell you, if you want something that's going to be just like a unique theatrical event, a queer event, and an event that makes you laugh, make sure you, The Comedians by Philip Dawkins and directed by Colm Summers. It's going to run November 14th through the 24th in a limited engagement at Raven Theater. For more information and tickets, go to raventheater.com, and that's theater spelled with an R-E because they're fancy that way.
Yeah, baby.
There we are, baby.
Yes. Break legs.
Break legs. Philip Dawkins, Colm Summers, thank you for joining us. Break legs. And Philip, especially break legs on that tight five, baby.
Thank you very much. It's always such a joy to be here. Thank you to you both.
You're our pleasure. Thanks so much.
Thank you. All right, we've got to take a quick break, and when we come back, it is the final thrilling, show-stopping moments about Chicago right here on WCPT Heartland Signal.
This is William Lindsay Cochran from the group Great Moments in Vinyl. You're listening to Out Chicago at WCPT.
Welcome back to Out Chicago. Scott Duff here and Ella Miller rolling along, talking about art and all that stuff. I literally have been thinking about Falsettos, again, one of my favorite shows ever. And the one line that keeps going.
What is it?
My father's a homo, my mother's not thrilled at all.
I can't imagine why.
Father homo. Yeah. It's wonderful.
I have to check it out. I've never
so much
seen
stuff
it.
going on.
Yes, there is.
So much stuff going on. Go check out The Comedians at Raven Theater and go see Falsettos down at the Court, co-production with Timeline Theater. Look, the only reason not the only, but one of the main reasons I'm mentioning that is because I'm refusing to let my rage take over my life like the last time we had Ding Dong in office. So
I think a lot of people are feeling that way that I've been talking to. They're like, I'm processing it differently.
Yeah.
You know, we kind of had a sad trial run for 4 years and all the time before he was running and since he ran. And I think now people are just feeling like they need to self-protect.
Yeah. But and just to say that, like, in terms of self-protection, that doesn't mean that I'm going to be complacent at all.
No.
I'm still going to be informed. I'm just not going to let it run my life.
Exactly.
And I think that is one of the big things that we can do as our act of resistance, sort of thing. Look, we're going to go to a phone call. Okay. David, thank you so much for hanging on. You've been hanging on for such a long time. Welcome. You're on Out Chicago.
Yeah, my battery was starting to fade. Followed political people. There are two different layers of solutions to where we are, and I don't know if you've seen the movie The Apprentice about Roy Cohn.
I've heard about. I know. Yeah, the Roy Cohn. How Trump was. He's follows his theories. Yeah.
Well, Roy Cohn used blackmail, and specifically blackmail of gay sex, to make sure that he got his Trump towers. If I remember right, it's a $60 million tax abatement, but he didn't have to pay taxes for endless years. $60 million worth of taxes that he owed the city of New York were abated because of one photograph of one of the commissioners in gay sex. And when you think about a theatrical whether it's an opera or whether it's some kind of a play that could be put together based upon, there's a book about Roy Cohn earlier when he was shoulder to shoulder with Joe McCarthy back in the 50s. The book is called Days of Shame. And basically it lays out that Roy Cohn's boyfriend was David Schein, and David Schein was going to be drafted. And that every target that Joe McCarthy went after were attempts to make sure that David Schein didn't get drafted. So he tried to get in the State Department deferred draft. Well, Joe McCarthy declared that there were commies in the State Department. He tried to crush the Army because they were trying to draft him, so there were commies in the Army. He tried to screw with the school districts, the universities, crushing them, saying there were commies in the university, and because they wouldn't give a deferment to David Schein. And so there's this ugly 50, 60 years after this series of incidents, and we're still trapped in a single blackmail. Mm-hmm. And so you're really in a profound position because the name of your show is Out. Mm-hmm. If Roy Cohn had been out back then, we wouldn't be in this trap. And if, Heartland Signal had the courage during the worst of Homeland Security development after 9/11 to create a news network that still exists, you create your own media. You've got to compete against these rats. And so you're a double plus because you're not just on a create your own media, but you're declaring out, and you're not trapped by blackmail. Yeah. And this is profound.
It really is, David. Thank you so much for hanging on for as long as you did. And thank you for your thoughts. We really do appreciate it. That's one of the things that I think is also kind of interesting about, in terms of like progressive media, there was a response. There was Air America Radio, and that lasted. But it seems like progressive folks, left-leaning folks, they've got stuff to do. They're just out doing stuff, and they're not sitting in front of a conservative radio. They want to have their own thoughts. They want to think their own things, and they're not just sitting there. So sometimes, we're very fortunate that WCPT and Heartland Signal have been around for as long as we have. And you know what? I'm
going to give a plug that I never give. Support Heartland Signal, because we fight for every advertising dollar that we get, because we're not one of those big stations that is pontificating Republican narratives. You know who I'm talking about, WLS, for example. Even WGN is owned by a very conservative company, and I don't have to get into all of the media that's being manipulated by rich Republicans who have bought it up. So we are one of the last bastions. So if you're an advertiser, if you're someone that that can support us, please do, because we're doing the best we can here, and it's not an easy road. Sadly, there seems to be a lot more money for conservative radio than us. So I had to give my plug here. Haven't been able to do that in a while.
There we are. Yeah.
Anyway, let's talk about some happy things.
Yes, I know you went and saw Judy Gold.
I saw Judy. Judy's a personal friend, and I was like, I so need. We asked her last week. I asked her, one of the questions was, if the election doesn't go the way we want, do you have two separate, she says, I'm just going to get up, no, I don't. But of course, as you would imagine, I went and saw her at the Mercury, Venus Cabaret at the Mercury Theater on Southport on Friday night. She did just fantastic show as always. I have to control my laugh because I miss the next words out of her mouth. It's one of those. It's just fast and furious. But of course, she talked about the election. Of course, she did. And she's friendly fire out there. I mean, it's friendly. It's all pretty much. It was allies and LGBTQ plus people in the audience. But she has got one more performance today at 5 o'clock. Run, don't walk. I know there's tickets. Last night I think sold out, but today there's still some tickets. This is the balm we need right now, and to laugh together brings us strength. It gives us power. It gives us power. So please go see Judy. One more show. Last night we also, my brother Nick and his wife and Kathy and I went to see The Marriage of Figaro. And I don't go to the opera very often.
To the opera?
At the Civic Opera House. you know what?
I love going to that building.
I love going in that building. I used to be intimidated on opening night because people dress to the freaking nines. Oh my God.
I don't like going to opening nights because I'm so woefully underdressed.
I feel that. But you know what? It is true.
They look amazing.
They do, but I hadn't been since pre-COVID to an opera, and things have evened out a little bit. Yes, there are those that are dressed the nines, but there's those that are there in a typical Saturday night going to the theater clothes. So if you love opera, this production is Barbara Gaines did it a long time from Chicago Shakes. She directed it. I'm not that versed in opera, but I loved every minute of the 3.5 hours that I was there. I really did. And so I highly recommend it. They don't do a lot of performances. They're doing for, I think there's 10 performances or something.
The opera world is crazy
it's just,
in terms of like,
oh my God, the work that goes into it for, you know. So anyway, support the arts. We need it's good for you. It's good for them. Support radio like Heartland Signal, WCPT. You know, we always say this. We can't rest on our laurels, and here we are again. Our rights are in jeopardy. We don't know what the future is going to bring. We hope that the powers of good somewhere, even within the Republican Party, will show a spine, but I'm not confident of it at all.
Oh, yeah.
But we just have to stick together and know that we're going to get to a better place, hopefully, if we continue to be positive and fight hard.
Yeah.
You know,
100%.
So,
but there we go. And The Marriage of Figaro is a comedy.
It's a comedy, and it was the voices are beautiful, and to laugh and
no microphones.
Were there no microphones?
There are no microphones on there.
Oh my!
I know.
And I was in double E, which was kind of back a little bit, and I could hear everything beautifully.
The opera
really,
people
there's no microphone.
That's the way that it is set up in there.
They built that theater to be the most acoustic friendly.
And the power of the human voice. That is one thing. Like, I love going to the theater, the opera, the ballet, or whatever. Going to see something that like I'm a talented artsy fartsy kind of guy. Sure. But I love going to see things that like, oh, I can't do that.
Yeah.
I can't do that. Which is why I love Cats.
Somebody does have to. A lot of people loved
Cats. Because I could never do that.
That's
the same thing with opera.
Every time I see theater, I say I can't do that.
Hey, so this week also was a big milestone for About Face Theater.
Yes, I know they had the big gala celebrating their anniversary.
Yeah, About Face Theater, which is Chicago's and the country's leading theater that is designated to advancing LGBTQ issues and advancing the conversation around sexuality and gender. And I was a founding member of it, and we are celebrating our 30th season. Cannot even imagine that. Like, it's just
flew by.
Cuckoo bananas. And there was a big thing that happened on Thursday, so everyone was still kind of a little shell-shocked.
Sure.
But again, I just want to, it was great to be around community, and especially a community around an organization with such an important mission, to continue telling our stories and to get those out there. And at these, it kind of took the place of the usual Wonka Ball, which is the big thing.
That used to be a lot of fun.
They're great. They're wonderful. But this time, and usually at the Wonka Balls, they present the Lepin Leadership Awards. Michael Lepin, who is a huge he's just a great force of good.
So much.
He's a great force of good. The Lepin Leader Awards were presented, and there was a new award that was presented called the Brian Goodman Rising Shooting Star Award. Brian Goodman was one of the founders. It was Eric Rosen, Kyle Hall, and Brian Goodman, who were initially the three that came together to begin About Face Theater, and he became a force to be reckoned with when it came to the About Face Youth Theater, which I think it was like 25 years. That we started celebrating that. We did that 5 years into it. he was known as like gay dad to all the kids. We called him Betty Benefit. There was a typo in a program once. So it was said his name was Brina Goodman, so we called him Brina forever. And he was just out there again, being a force of good and a role model for so many young people. And he was a talented actor, and one of those people that was just like devilishly handsome. That you're like, oh, anybody who looks that good has got to be a jerk, and he's not at all. I mean, he was wonderful, and a proud uncle and proud husband. He passed away from ALS. I think right before the pandemic, like in 2019. So before then, but they took the time out and to honor folks who actually were alums of the About Face Youth Theater. So I'm going back to the second one, some 25 years ago. And it was really great just to be there and to celebrate 30 years of queer theater, and to celebrate Brian Goodman, because he was a great guy.
Sounds like he deserves celebrating, and it was just what the doctor ordered for you and everybody else that's been working so hard. With About Face.
It was great, and again, the whole notion of like community is really important these days. We began this segment saying like I refuse to let my rage consume me during this time, especially right now. We've got 2 months. We don't know what's going to happen. I mean, we kind of know what's going to happen, but we don't know what's going to happen.
Don't obsess at this point.
But there are things that I think that people just really look after yourselves out there, people. Some things just to keep in mind. Focus on the little things. Find the things that bring you joy. This week, what I did, I already made my stock for Thanksgiving. Cooking is my outlet. I made stock for Thanksgiving. I made beef bourguignon. I just cooked for 3 days.
We have chicken pot pie on the menu tonight. Talk about a comfort
I will be over.
Please come by. It serves 4. We only have 2.
But do the things that bring you joy, and acknowledge those moments that you find joy, and realize that there is still joy around.
And check in with one another. I had a friend call me the day after, who was, how are you doing? Check in with your friends. Let them know you're there for them. Because we're all going through this together.
Yeah, and take care of your physical health.
And take care of your physical.
I have not. I've been stress eating at an Olympic level.
You said that, and I you know what? Wednesday morning I blew off my workout because I couldn't get up. But then I said, you know what? No, I'm not going to let them win. I'm going to be in the best physical and mental shape I can be, because we have a battle ahead, and we need to keep our wits about us.
And on that note, don't try to solve everything at once.
No.
There's a lot. It's too big. It's too big. Just look at what you can do. It's always good to be active, in your community and in something that you believe in. That feels like an action as opposed to being complacent. Do not self-isolate. Try to be with as many people as you can when you can. And like I said last week about my friend Penny, go and cultivate enthusiasm. Try to cultivate enthusiasm and hope. And during this time, live your values. I'm going to be saying that a lot over the next 4 years, but really live your values.
Be kind
daily.
To one another.
Be kind. And I want to thank everybody who came on the show, who was kind enough to come on the show today. Thank Brian Johnson of Equality Illinois. Remember, go to equalityillinois.us to see if you can get a link to that virtual panel discussion where we can all process things. Nick Bowling from Timeline Theater, go check out Falsettos at Court, and Philip Dawkins and Colm Summers, the comedians at Raven. Devin, thank you so much for everything. Paul, thank you. You made ribs, but they're all gone now. And I'm hungry. And it smelled really good.
Good.
Ellen, we're going to do this.
We're going to do it, Scott.
We're going to
get through it together. Yes, sir.
And I am Scott Duff, and until next week, stay proud.